The IRGC just made a statement that leaves no doubt that a crushing response awaits Israel following its assassination of a senior Hezbollah figure in Beirut a couple of days ago. So far, the Iranian side made several statements condemning this attack, but this confirmation and statement issued by the IRGC has significant meanings. Let's go through the actual statement that was made by the IRGC. A crushing response awaits Israel. So we know that Israel targeted this man a couple of days ago in Beirut, in the southern suburb of Beirut. Israel did not know the identity or the image of the person, but they clearly had some intel. Then they carried out the assassination against him. Now that the IRGC is saying something rather than the Iranian diplomatic or political officials, indicates that they are directly involved. Why? Because, well, the senior figures of any leading armed resistance movement in the region that is tied with Iran have direct dealings with the IRGC, in particular what is called the Quds force that is in charge of the foreign operations of Iran's IRGC, one of the two armies that Iran has. They said in their statement, following the martyrdom of the prominent Hezbollah commander Ali Haytham Tabtabai at the hands of the terrorist Israeli occupation army, the Revolutionary Guard affirmed that the right of the resistance axis and Hezbollah to avenge the blood of the brave fighters is preserved, and that a crushing response awaits the terrorist enemy at the appropriate time. Notice the terminology in their statement. They're saying that they had the right, the resistance axis, and then Hezbollah, saying that what? That it's not just now in the hands of Hezbollah, this assassination. We are talking about the resistance axis as a whole. Is there a backing to this statement? Have we seen something in the past in the form of a response from Iran and the resistance axis for certain assassination attempts? Well, yes, we have. Firstly, when a senior Hamas figure was killed in Lebanon, Hezbollah responded. Then when the leader of the political bureau of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, was martyred in Iran, Iran responded. When the previous Secretary General of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, was martyred, Iran also responded. There were combination attacks happening there. So there is a precedent. There is something that happened before that indicates that it can happen again. And don't be misled by the right time statement, because we know very well that even if Iran does delay an attack, that attack is coming inevitably, whether it takes a month or two or a week or a half a year or a year. Now let's go ahead and continue with the actual statement and exactly what they said. The official statement said the following: in the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, the Zionist entity has once again committed a blatant terrorist crime targeting one of Hezbollah's steadfast leaders, the martyr Haytham Ali Tabtabai, in Beirut's southern suburbs. This cowardly act, perpetrated under the guise of the so-called ceasefire, which the tyrants of our time have consistently violated, is not a sign of strength, but rather a clear testament of the weakness and impotence of an enemy that has reached a dead end in the face of the will of the region's peoples and the axis of the resistance. They strongly condemned this heinous crime that led to the martyrdom of this capable and martyr-loving commander on the battlefields of the resistance axis, who played a vital role in thwarting the plots of the Takfiri groups, in addition to the martyrdom of a number of his comrades and a group of steadfast Lebanese. The IRGC also expresses its deep regret over the silence and inaction of international human rights organizations, regarding the genocide and brutal practices of the Zionist entity, as well as the support provided to this entity by the warmongering and terrorist creating rulers of the White House. It affirms the following. This is the important bit here. They made 4 points. Contrary to the dreams of America, the Zionist entity, and all of the criminals who support them, the axis of resistance is alive and vibrant, and the blood of the martyrs does not extinguish the flame of resistance, but rather increases the flame of hope and determination in the hearts of the free people and the brave, faithful resistance fighters in the region. There is no doubt that the right of the resistance axis and Hezbollah in Lebanon to avenge the blood of the heroic fighters of Islam is preserved, and that a crushing response awaits the terrorist enemy at the appropriate time. The Islamic nation and the free peoples of the world seeking justice view this assassination as part of a psychological warfare campaign and a desperate attempt by a wolfish criminal entity to conceal its internal crises and successive battlefield defeats, particularly at the hands of the steadfast and heroic Lebanese resistance and the powerful and esteemed Hezbollah, as well as the oppressed and resilient Palestinian Resistance Front. The outcome of these attempts will be nothing but defeat and increased global outrage against this entity. The resistance front in all arenas, note, military, political, media, and popular, is proceeding in harmony and with a sacred will on a path or the path to liberating Jerusalem and sweeping away the cancerous tumor represented by the fake and usurping Zionist entity until the final victory is achieved over the occupiers in the Holy Land of Palestine and the noble Jerusalem. That is a straightforward statement here. Number one, there's a lot of significance to the fact that the IRGC is making this statement. Usually, we will have several leaders condemning certain attacks on Lebanon, for example. The IRGC might have some statements, but them directly and outright having this statement confirms that they are showing a lot of importance to what's happening and that assassination against this figure from Hezbollah. To the fact that they are talking about a response. So far, Hezbollah said that we are going to study how the response will be. But the first side that said that a crushing response awaits them is Iran. That is another note here. Hezbollah did not say that the response is coming. So far, Iran said that, which indicates that they're taking this matter in their own hands. Then that leads us to the confirmation or the nature of the response. A crushing blow, they said, by the resistance axis and Hezbollah, indicating that multiple fronts can be open against Israel in this response alongside Iran or including Iran and then Hezbollah, showing a high level of harmony and coordination between the resistance movements and fronts in the region. And that may come at any point. We have seen Iran firstly delaying a response by several months, then by 6 months, then by approximately 8 months. But nevertheless, that response came. They usually do that to have an element of surprise in their attack against Israel. Now, we know that they said there's going to be a response. They're taking it very seriously, and they're saying the resistance axis. What's going to be the nature response? That's what many people are interested to know. Is it going to be a response like what Iran showed us on True Promise 1, 2, and 3? What is it going to be like exactly? Are they going to be targeting Israel with missiles 24/7, full throttle attack? Is it going to be a front that would include Yemen, Iraq, and Lebanon against Israel? Is it going to be just Iran? Is it going to be just Yemen? These are, of course, the Iranian missiles. that landed on the genocide entity in previous attacks, and they were destructive in Israel. These attacks of Iran, they had a lot of damage done to Israel following multiple attacks. There could be a possibility that the scenario that we spoke about initially during the genocide of Iran and the resistance fronts having an all-out open front, there could be a time where that comes. Now, usually an all-out front indicates that they're going all out against Israel. And that would be, for example, an all-out attack coming simultaneously from Iran, Lebanon, Yemen, potentially Iraq too, against Israel, that would literally overwhelm the Israeli defense systems. If we're talking about 20,000 missiles, for example, within an hour, it would totally outstretch everything that Israel has in terms of missile defense systems, and they're gonna destroy large chunks of Israel. However, that might provoke a harsher response from Israel, or potentially even the United States participating with Israel. Now, so far, the Iranians chose responses against Israel and even against the United States base in Qatar after the US participated in the Israeli terror attacks against Iran. They chose very well calculated responses. Their responses were measured in line with international law. They did not go all out. They just wanted to teach Israel a lesson. Now, that lesson, you may think to yourself, well, has Israel learned anything? There are multiple answers to that, several answers. Well, number one, the war with Iran ended within 12 days. Why did it end within 12 days? Because Israel got really hurt. Iran did not open an all-out front to stop other wars from continuing. They used leverage because from their perspective, they are the only country in their entirety, unlike Yemen, for example, where we have Ansarullah controlling the one part of the country, and then you have another, the Saudi-backed government, or, you know, a government that is internationally recognized in Yemen. Iran is the only country in its entirety willing to have this all-out approach with Israel. They would consider several things if they would want to do that. Number one, what is the depth of support that they're going to get from other fronts? What that attack will attract in terms of response against them? Will Israel have a nuclear attack against Iran? Will the United States participate in full with Israel? What are they going to do? The likelihood is that Iran will refrain from any attack that would provoke harsher measures being taken against it. How? This could be a calculated attack coming from Iran and maybe several resistance fronts as well against Israel in terms of missiles, drones, or an assassination attempt against a leading figure in Israel. We have seen several assassinations of top figures in the Israeli army and intelligence, by the way, that Israel denied. Israel denied many of them. One of them was the leader of the 8,200 unit that was targeted by a Hezbollah attack and then disappeared. They said he resigned, but we saw no ceremony. We didn't see anything happening. Israel did not have the traditional ceremony of him leaving and someone else taking his position, which indicates he was killed. But Israel, of course, didn't want to confirm it because they would be viewed as a very vulnerable side. And from an Israeli perspective, the psychological warfare is more important than the war itself, because they want people to perceive them as if they are untouchable or as if their leaders aren't vulnerable to attacks, when, again, Hezbollah did that, and they also targeted Benjamin Netanyahu's bedroom window in an assassination attempt when Benjamin Netanyahu was there. Why? Because, well, there are networks in Israel who are informants and work for Iran who hate Benjamin Netanyahu. And Iran and Hezbollah would use this information as leverage to get information about senior figures, including Benjamin Netanyahu, despite the fact that he had security measures being tightened on him for over a year now because of several assassination attempts, including from Israelis, by the way. Threats of violence and actual violence, like, these light bombs thrown next to his house, and multiple other threats happening from several Israelis. Now, of course, Iran usually would not specify the timing or the way they're going to be responding. They're just going to carry out a response. How did the pattern look like, and what's going to be different this time? Well, what we know is that when Israel attacked Iran, when Iran attacked Israel, Iran responded. Iran did not carry out an attack on its own initiative. In some cases, they used certain Israeli terror acts against them and several elements within the resistance front, alongside an attack against Iran, as part of the response, as an excuse to the response. As we saw, for example, in True Promise 2, when they said this is the response to the assassinations of Ismail Haniyeh, Hassan Nasrallah, and a response to the genocide in Gaza and the murdered children in Gaza, along those lines. So they hit several birds in one shot. In the third response of Iran, True Promise 3, well, Israel started to carry out attacks against Iran. That was the fiercest response coming from Iran because it was the most intense attack from Israel, which positions this response somewhere between the previous attacks, if we want to judge it based on Iran's previous responses against Israel. So we're not talking about necessarily the largest response, because there's a figure that was targeted, but the fact that they are talking about it, and the fact that they are taking it seriously and confirming there will be response from the resistance before Hezbollah, and them saying there is going to be response before Hezbollah themselves, indicates that they take it very seriously. Which leads us back to the lessons learned. We were talking about how the war did end with Iran after 12 days, but did that deter Israel from attacking Iran again? Is Israel totally deterred from attacking Iran, or are they going to attack them undeniably once again? Chances are it didn't completely deter Israel from attacking Iran again. Israel still has capabilities to attack Iran, and although they were very hurt with this attack, and the Iran caused a lot of damage inside of Israel, Israel still has tricks up its sleeves. They can still conduct attacks against Iran. They probably employ several other networks that Iran maybe didn't find out yet. They have the Air Force, they have the capacity to do these attacks. The war, the 12-day war, or what was called at the time Iran's True Promise 3, that was a case of Iran or Israel stopping the war because of the levels of attacks coming from Iran. That did not mean that Israel is putting that on the side altogether. So there was a deterrence there, but a deterrence in continuing the Israeli war on them. Not a deterrence for any Israeli attack against Iran, especially with Benjamin Netanyahu now craving something that will boost his popularity before the next elections in Israel. Then we talk about it from an Iranian perspective. Iran, there is an understanding, there is a belief, as a matter of fact, within certain elements in leading positions in Iran, in the IRGC, in the Iranian political domain, the leading echelon in Iran, that it's going to have to be eventually in all-out war with Israel. Not everyone agrees with them. Some elements think that no, we need to win by points with them. We need a long breath here. We shouldn't go all out immediately. But there are figures who believe that that's the only solution with Israel. As a matter of fact, several observers said that, well, if had Iran continued its attacks against Israel, Israel would have been in a very bad situation. Their air defense missiles were running out. The missiles in their majority were landing, so as in there was hardly anything being intercepted, especially as days went by, showed a lot of Israeli vulnerability. They targeted very sensitive locations like the oil refineries in occupied Haifa in the north, like several sensitive bases, like hangars of F-35s and fighter jets of Israel, and some of their air bases and military bases too. Therefore, the response here would be included if Iran chooses to go all out as part of the greater battle between Israel and Iran knowing that it's inevitably going to have an all-out confrontation with Israel at one point. And judging by the level of coordination, the level of information being shared by all of the elements, both in Iran, Lebanon, Palestine, Iraq, Yemen, and any other fronts too, we do have the base. There is a base for a joint attack to be conducted against Israel, as in a final attack type of thing, where they would force Israel to completely get rid of its regime, as in we're talking about a regime change in Israel. And then they would use the leverage that the whole genocide caused with this whole global uprising and awakening, because everyone would support this action against Israel. Well, most people, of course. Some governments are going to oppose it because, well, they're still aligned with Israel to this day. But the popular support is going to be there. It's going to be there from the United States of America, moving on to the other countries. The majority of the American public, if you ask them, which country would you like the US forces to attack? They'll tell you would like them to attack Israel. Israel is losing in the polls in the United States. They're still trying to brainwash certain people, but everyone, we saw that very well when Iran was attacking the genocide state. The whole world was celebrating, and if they would conduct another all-out attack against Israel, the whole world will be supporting them again, even more.